Hi folks, and welcome to this episode of Go Woo Adventures. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Ishin. In this episode, we visit the fabulous Thousand Islands area of upstate New York. On the border with Canada, we explore in and around Alexandria Bay, Wellesley Island, Boldt Castle, and Singer Castle.
We stayed at the Swan Bay RV Resort and Marina in Alexandria Bay. As you can see, the sites are rather close together, but other than that, it is a very nice campground. It's also nice to have Price Chopper supermarkets so close by.
Here are some photos in and around the campground.
There is a swampy area on the west side of the park's shoreline. This is where you can see several of the waterfowl that inhabit this area.
We went into downtown Alexandria Bay later that day to have a very refreshing watermelon cooler as we sat outside the old homestay restaurant and watched the people pass by. Later that day, we went to the Thousand Islands Welcome Center, right along Interstate 81, just before you get on the Thousand Islands Bridge that takes you onto Wellesley Island.
Believe it or not, you are actually allowed to walk the full length of the bridge, which is about 1 mile round trip. We only went up to the top and then back down. But wow, what a view at the top. And wait until you see what we saw going under us.
There are usually 3 or 4 ocean-going vessels a day passing through the region. We were lucky enough to see this freighter passing under us right as we were at the top of the bridge.
The next day, we took our little 13-foot inflatable boat onto the river and headed to Boldt Castle. Along the way, we saw 2 large ocean-going vessels. The St. Lawrence Seaway connects the Atlantic Ocean with all 5 Great Lakes, as far inland as Duluth, Minnesota, so it's not uncommon to see such vessels traveling the river.
Here are some photos of some of the islands we saw along the way.
There was even a Canadian warship patrolling the waters on the Canadian side of the border, which splits the river down the middle.
Here are some photos we took as we approached Hart Island, where Boldt Castle is located. The boathouse for the castle is located across the river on Wesley Island. We'll get to see that a little later.
We tied our boat to one of the island's many docks, bought our entrance tickets for both the castle and the boathouse, and started to explore. In 1900, George Boldt, general manager of the famous Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City, undertook to build a 6-story castle on Hart Island as a present to his wife.
It was to be one of the largest private homes in the United States. However, construction ended abruptly in 1904 when his wife suddenly died. George never returned to Hart Island.
The property laid abandoned for 73 years, left exposed to harsh winter weather and vandals. The Thousand Island Bridge Authority bought Hart Island and a nearby boathouse in 1977 for $1.
The Bridge Authority has restored the island and the buildings to the level you see today. They will continue the process until all is fully restored. Tens of thousands of visitors tour the castle each year.
We first explored what is known as the Playhouse. This building was built first and acted as a living quarters for George and his family while the castle was being built.
As we walked into the Playhouse, we were greeted by a knight in shining armor. We toured the basement next and discovered a 2-lane bowling alley.
This is a covered patio complete with a fireplace. Off in the distance is a view of an island called Just Big Enough. So called because the island is just big enough for a house and nothing else.
There are many areas of the Playhouse that have yet to be restored. We headed out of the Playhouse and backed onto the grounds.
We then walked over to the powerhouse, which is on its own separate island. It housed 3 30-horsepower dynamos that supplied power to the more than 500 lights on the island. Here is a short video of the room where power was generated. Much of what you see here is not the original equipment, but is representative of what was originally here.
The tower to the right is called the Dove Cove. It's where a flock of doves were housed. The white statue you see are located in the Italian garden, which we will see more of it later.
We took the tunnel from the powerhouse up to the basement of the castle, and then walked up the stairs to the first floor and an elegant grand staircase. Five stories above the staircase is a beautiful stained glass dome. At night, the dome is lit from behind with several large light fixtures.
Just off the main reception area is a room with a fireplace and a few chairs. Next to that is the ballroom. still on the first floor, and behind the staircase is the large dining room with seating for up to 18 people.
The family residences are located on the second floor. Here there are sitting rooms, bathrooms, and bedrooms. The rooms are decorated in period-appropriate furnishings and are not actual items from the castle, but do represent authentic visions of what it might have looked like.
Remember the Italian garden we talked about earlier when we were down at the powerhouse? Well, this is that area. Next, we take our little boat across the river to the big boat house.
The boathouse is more like a museum of antique boats and equipment that are not necessarily related to George Boldt's island. But nevertheless, it is still interesting and worth visiting. George Boldt also had a luxury 104-foot-long houseboat called La Duchess. Like many houseboats of its era, it was motorless. La Duchess was towed by Boldt's tugboat called Queen.
We were surprised to learn that the boathouse had luxury accommodations for the boat crews, captains, and mechanics. After touring the boathouse, we got back into our little boat and headed for the north side of Wesley Island.
This is when disaster struck. Our outboard motor died. Now this motor is around 30 years old, but it was rebuilt right before this trip, so we expected that it would be trouble-free.
And up until now, it has worked perfectly.
So here we are, stranded in the St. Lawrence River, halfway between the south shore of Wellesley Island and the north shore of Fairyland Island. I tried several times to restart the motor, but nothing worked. After 30 minutes or so, I gave up. We, of course, all this time had our life jackets on, but the wind was blowing us towards Fairyland Island. We had oars on board and started paddling towards a dock on the island. We didn't have to paddle very far because the wind was blowing us in the right direction, right to the dock.
I don't think we had to paddle more than a minute or two.
We got on shore and tried to wave down passing boats and jet skis. We were hoping someone would tow us back to our marina. I think everyone thought that we were waving hello to them.
Because they keep on waving back to us. Very frustrating.
After an hour of waving, I decided to call 911 on my cell phone. We were in American waters at the time, so I was surprised that we got Canadian emergency services. After 10 minutes of explaining, they finally connected me to USA 911. We explained that we were stranded on a dock on Fairyland Island and that our motor had died. They asked if we were safe. We said yes. That might have been a mistake. Since we were safe, they said there was nothing they could do to help. They suggested calling a boat tow company and connected us to a company in Clayton, which is about 15 miles upriver from our location.
They told us that the cost to come and get us, tow us back to our marina would be $225 an hour, and they estimated it will be about 4 hours round trip.
I was shocked and explained that it was only a 13-foot inflatable boat and that we only paid a few $100s for it, and asked if there was anything they could do to help about the price. They must have felt sorry for us because they ended up charging us for only 1 hour, $225 plus tax.
This is the dock that we fled to safety on. Nobody was home at that time.
It turns out the captain of the towboat was also a guide for a tour boat company in Clayton. He gave vivid descriptions of the various properties and their owners as we passed by them on our way back to our marina.
It was almost worth the $225 towing fee just to hear his detailed descriptions.
For example, George Pullman lived here. He invented the Pullman sleeper car for railroads all over the world. The Thousand Islands area wasn't a popular place until Pullman started inviting guests to visit him there.
This beautiful property can be rented for only $3,000 a day.
This was Irving Berlin's summer residence. Kate Smith lived next door to the right. The letters on the house spell out the word always. This is the title of a song that Berlin wrote to honor a woman who refused his marriage proposal for family reasons. Berlin never published the song. Kate Smith later discovered the sheet music and convinced Berlin to publish it and to let her sing it. When the woman who refused Berlin's proposal heard the song on the radio, she knew it was about her. She divorced her husband and married Berlin because she was always in love with him. Thus the word always on the house. Berlin has long passed away and the house is owned by someone else. However, there is a provision in the deed that whoever owns the house must keep always on the side of the house.
This house is one of the 2 identical houses that were owned by 2 sets of married twins. Twin brothers married twin sisters and built twin houses side by side here along Millionaires Road in Alexandria Bay. One of the married couple passed away. A little later, their house burned down to the ground. The surviving married twins never rebuilt the destroyed house. There are many such fascinating stories in and around Alexandria Bay. We encourage you to visit the area and discover them for yourself.
The next day, we visited Singer Castle, which is about 9 miles downriver or east of Alexandria Bay. You can book passage on the Uncle Sam boat tours, which takes about 3.5 hours round trip. But we decided to drive to Chippewa Bay and then take a water taxi from Shimmerhorn Marina in Hammond. This is a bit cheaper and much more time efficient. Singer Castle is located on Dark Island and was built by Frederick Bourne, who was the 5th president of the Singer Sewing Machine Company. Construction started in 1903 and was completed in 1905. It is the only remaining castle on the river to be completed, fully furnished, and resided in during the heyday of the great builders and industrials of New York City. The castle remained in the Bourne family until the mid-1960s.
When you first arrive at the dock, there is a small gift shop you can visit while you wait for your tour group to get organized. All tours are narrated by a guide that walks each group on a timed schedule. It takes about 45 minutes to see everything.
This is the main entrance to the castle. Once inside Singer Castle's massive medieval entranceway, shiny knights of armor stand guard beside the enormous marble fireplace. The marble stairway to the right leads up to the breakfast room.
Throughout the castle, you will find many examples of antique Singer sewing machines, reminding you of the owner's fame.
This is the breakfast room. There are huge glass windows on 3 sides of the room, giving a panoramic view of the St. Lawrence River and the surrounding islands. Passing ocean-going freighters seem almost close enough to touch.
At the far end of the room is this elegant table and chair arrangement. These items have been dated back to the 1400s.
This set of doors leads out to a large balcony facing the south and Chippewa Bay. The balcony also overlooks the 5-story tall clock tower with its 4 6-foot diameter clock faces. This functioning timepiece has Westminster chimes that sound every 15 minutes.
The elegant dining room features Italian hand-carved ornate table and chairs and an Italian marble fireplace that was carved on site by importing Italian craftsmen.
Mr. Bourne felt that servants should not be seen except when actually serving the family and guests. To ensure this, he had secret passageways and doors built into the castle as it was being constructed. Select servants would observe the family from hidden vantage points around the castle, such as this painting that would tilt back slightly to allow for observation.
Then when someone needed something, such as more wine, a servant would suddenly appear at just the perfect moment in time. Here is an example of the steep and the narrow passageways the servant would have to navigate in order to serve the family.
The music room has a fireplace, a small organ, a Victrola, and believe it or not, a flat-screen photo viewer. The white screen you see in the middle of the table is an illuminated flat screen that optically projects photos that are placed behind it. Sort of like a movie screen, but the image is projected from behind rather than that from the front. Revolutionary for its time.
Adjacent to the music room is the sun wicker room, complete with a baby grand piano.
This is a spa room. A doctor would often visit the castle when the family was there. He would care for the health of the family members and supervise exercise programs. After exercise, there would often be a massage followed by some time in a light box. It was thought at the time that artificial light was beneficial.
The library walls was lined with bookcases and, of course, has a fireplace and a knight in shining armor guarding it.
The castle has its own telephone system for calling various rooms and servant areas. This painting is another one of those used for the servants to watch over the people in the room so that they knew when to provide service. The eyes in the painting are removable from behind, and then the servant peers through them.
Here is another example of the narrow passageways the servants have to navigate.
There are many bedrooms and bathrooms in the castle, so many that I have forgotten which ones are which. So here is a collection of images of them in no particular order. Some are family quarters and some are servants. You may have noticed light switches in the rooms. The castle was electrified and powered by an electric generating system that could use either diesel or gasoline fuel. There was an electric water pump that supplied running water to the castle. These photos depict some of this equipment.
The outside of the castle and the grounds are just as spectacular as the inside.
This beautiful courtyard was once home to a grass tennis court, as can be seen here in this photograph.
The 3 arched windows you see here are located in the breakfast room, the one with 3 of its walls containing this type of window.
I really like this castle. It really is a very interesting place to visit and get a glimpse into the lifestyle of the rich and famous of that era.
The tour ends by walking along this path and off to the left, and down a few steps and returning to the dock where our water taxi was waiting for us. The Southern Islands area is rich in history and beauty. There is so much to see and do here if you have your own boat, as we did. They are endless islands, coves, and scenic vistas to explore.
If you don't own a boat, you can book from a variety of tours from several tour operators in the area.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed seeing the area through our eyes. See you next time.